Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today's the 10th of February, year 2025. Today I'm going to speak on the full moon that's coming up on the 12th. It is exact at 5:53 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you live elsewhere, you will have to do the math. This full moon is coming right before the much celebrated holiday, for some, of Valentine's Day. However, I just want to say having a full moon 48 hours before the day we celebrate love indicates that there might not be such a feeling of so much love this Valentine's Day, because classically full moons represent shedding a light and most often separations. So this full moon indicates, with the moon in Leo at 24 degrees, in the natural wheel it falls in the 5th house, the house of romance, children, having fun, and the sun will fall in the 11th house of friends, Congress, and long-term hopes and wishes. And that 11th house sun is just past a conjunction of Mercury. It is involved in a grand square with one of the asteroids, Juno. Now, I'm not a complete drip of spoiler looking at this chart. There will, of course, be many a couple that will celebrate their partnership. However, this full moon does indicate that there is a strong vibration of, are we committed or not? You know, that classic argument that happens between couples. What are we? What are we doing here? Those kind of conversations. I think it's really sad in a way that Valentine's Day has been hijacked by commercialism, because many people feel pressured into acknowledging this day rather than it just coming from the pulse of the heart. And sometimes with these full moons, it's not a permanent split. It's just a slight separation, just a need for a little space that can occur. But the asteroid that's involved is Juno, and that's the marriage asteroid. That's also an asteroid that deals with monetary issues. So we are looking at this full moon to have a broad influence over values, those of a monetary level, sudden breakups because Uranus is involved, and of course the sun and Mercury is in Aquarius, which is very much not the energy of wanting to be caged in. Aquarian energy really likes to float around like air, because it is an air sign. I'm actually amazed how many people confuse Aquarius with a water sign because of the icon, the glyph of the man with the water on his shoulder. They often, pouring the water, they often confuse it to be a water sign, but it is very much in the head, intellectual, free thinking. So this Mercury with the sun is great for conversations. It's fabulous for discussing, what do you view as this relationship? Is it a friendship? Is it moving toward a romantic liaison or romantic coupledom? And with the sun just 1 degree away from a separation of a square to Uranus, that also cements the thought in my mind that for this Valentine's Day, many people will have a realization that they're not in a partnership that's working for them. And part of that not working has to do with one party needing more space and the other party needing more romance. And since the moon falls in the 5th house of children, it can be something as simple as, I want kids in my future and you don't. Or it could be something more complex, which is, I wish to build a relationship that allows for freedom and commitment. And that can be done, but there's usually a lot of negotiation that has to happen at first. I would like to also indicate here that I'm working with the natural wheel. Now, sometimes with a full moon, light is shed on what the issues are, and so this can indicate a thrashing out, discussing, exploring possible options that will make the relationship work where both parties get their needs met. Another interesting factor with this particular chart is Venus is in Aries at 5 degrees. Venus is usually impatient in love at this placement, so sometimes people can push for a commitment way sooner than really is advisable. And that Venus is in a square to Mars, which is in Cancer and is retrograde. So Venus and Mars in a tense relationship with each other. And as we look at this from a perspective of Venus being female, Mars being male, they're on different shelves right now. There may be an attraction, that friction from the square, but they're on different shelves. And so with the sun in opposition to the moon and Venus in a square to Mars, it can often indicate that opposites attract, but there's not a great deal of glue there, or the glue that could hold something together has not been discovered yet. Everything that I've just said can also be applied to mundane issues like the tariffs, like all the changes that are being instigated in the United States of America with our new president. And I do mention him because he has a Leo rising at 29 degrees. And so this full moon is going to fall in his 12th house. And that indicates to me that he is really going to have to work it behind the scenes. He's going to get a lot of pushback. And that will also be true of Vice President Vance as well, because he is a Leo, and this particular full moon chart is activating his additionally. Interestingly, the moon will fall in J.D. Vance's 12th house as well, and it's conjunct Venus in his chart. So both the president and the vice president are going to be working the room and working the back room to get their ideas solid and accepted. And it is not going to be necessarily a smooth sailing, shall we say. They're going to earn their keep. And I'd also like to add in regards to President Trump, he needs to be extra careful and beef up his security. And I say that because we have a solar eclipse coming up in March, which I will do a podcast on. It falls in his 8th house. This Venus right now at 5 degrees Aries is just short of triggering that solar eclipse in Aries. You can trigger an eclipse, or the stars can trigger an eclipse before it happens. So part of the potential possibilities can manifest before the eclipse even happens. So I would highly suggest that he do that, because he is his chart, President Trump's chart, is activated both by that Aries eclipse in his 8th house, which is the house of sex, death, taxes, and other people's money. And then also there is a lunar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse that's occurring in March. I believe it's on the 14th, the day before the Ides of March. And it is in a very complex square to his sun and his moon, creating a grand square immutable signs. So both of these newly elected representatives in higher office are in for a very active, changing, full of anger time. Even though a lot of people are probably super happy with some of the changes they're making, there will also be people who are not. And I say this especially because I did notice the President Trump suggested that we take over Gaza, and I just think that this is not going to be well received by many people, and that's a very dangerous suggestion. Coming up, March is like packed. March needs like 5 different podcasts, so much is going on. But on the 2nd of March, Venus will turn retrograde. Any breakups that happen right now, they have the possibility of having makeups that first week in March. And some people do this as a habit. They create drama, they break up, then they make up because they're addicted to the feeling of joy and ecstasy, that fabulous feeling when you think you've lost something and then suddenly you find it or it's returned. This full moon will be especially important for people who were born between 1957 and early 1958, specifically the latter part of 1957, because Uranus in the sky would have been at 24 degrees Leo during those months. So the full moon will activate their Uranus, and it will even move a little bit into the 5960 group. You'd have to know their individual charts. One of the indicators of the moon falling on Uranus is sudden domestic changes, sudden intuition, suddenly being in the limelight. I use the word sudden because Uranus, whenever it's activated, it's always an unexpected event that comes out of the blue. This could have been something that you've dreamed about, finally manifesting, but it always has an air of, I didn't see that coming. So let's make it a happy moment and buy your lotto tickets, and let's just hope that you didn't see that $1 million ticket coming, but you accept it. That moon will oppose Mercury, so that is definitely working out the kinks in any contracts or any car issues you might have. The best advice I can pour out with this particular full moon is really try not to get into fixed positions. And this will be hard because we are dealing with fixed signs. Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus, which is all involved in this full moon through the grand square, are fixed signs. So one of the issues that can happen is that you fix your perspective on the possibilities, and so therefore you limit any openings that can happen. Well, in life, sometimes you do have to just say, I'm not crossing this line. You can't cross this line. I'm not going a step further. But weigh your words wisely. This is an entertaining full moon. So if you're in the performance arts, the creative arts, you should be loaded with invention and new abstract ideas, improvisation, comedy with a really dark twist. And speaking of that, I just want to mention a film I saw that I just loved, and it's from a way back. It's called The Dressmaker, and it is so funny, and it's absolutely with dark humor. So if you are not a person that can handle the dark humor, you may not like it as much as I did, but I was wailing with laughter. It is directed by Joyce Morehouse, which I believe is just genius. And Kate Winslet is in it. And a very good-looking actor that I cannot remember his last name, but his first name is Liam. And you'll know him when you see him, if you see the film. I'd like to suggest that. That's on Prime. And it would be really appropriate to sort of see that film during this full moon cycle, which will extend for 2 weeks. Now, the Sabian symbol for that 24th degree is the bareback rider in a circus thrills excited crowds. And that is so apropos for this full moon chart. And the second Sabian symbol, because we have 2 for this particular degree, is a man attacks a large tree with his axe, while another man starts to saw up the tree already cut down. And that is very apropos as well, because that's kind of what's happening right now in America with our budget. Cuts, cuts, cuts. So always look for the love, but give a little space with your loved ones if they request it. You can save a partnership being a little flexible right now. Allow your inventor mind to flourish and perfect the art of compromise. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so on patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And if you become a patron, you get these podcasts right when they're produced, right when they are hot off the mic, not days later. And you also get additional written information and updates with what's happening in the sky throughout the month that the public does not get. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.